And we are back.
Hello again. It's us, the Horror Guys.
I'm Brian.
And I'm Kevin.
And this is episode 151.
And we watched some horror movies, and we're going to tell you about them.
151 episodes. We're on our fourth year now.
Wow.
We just finished our third year.
That's pretty awesome.
That's a lot of scary movies.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them are even good.
Some this week were good.
We've got the just-released film, Saint Maud. A little religion terror there.
And yet IMDb listed as 2019.
Yeah, I think it's had a long time in limbo before it was released.
Maybe some festivals and things like that.
Yeah. I know it's been out for a little while. Wolfen from 1981. That's been out for a little while.
Mm-hmm.
The Face of the Screaming Werewolf from 1964. That's got to be the best title for a horror movie ever.
Boy, it didn't live up to its title at all.
And 1979's Tourist Trap. Okay. Well, let's see. What do we got to talk about this week? Hey, you know we put out a monthly magazine
I have heard that, and I've even seen it.
You have, yes.
Yeah.
We are up to issue 4 of Horror Bulletin Monthly. There's a link on the website. Go to horrorguys.com. And there's a link there for monthly magazine, and you can choose any one of the 4 or all of the 4. It compiles basically everything in our newsletter, which you can find at horrorbulletin.com.
The most recent one's cover, the December cover, was the awesome one, I think.
You like that Santa Claus thing? Huh?
Yeah, Santa Claus skeleton.
Scary Santa. All right. Are we ready?
I'm ready.
Well, first up, we have Tourist Trap from 1979. Written and directed by David Schmoller, and also written by J. Larry Carroll. Stars Jocelyn Jones, Joan Van Ness, Robin Sherwood, and, who's that guy? He's not in the credits.
Why isn't he in the credits?
He isn't in the credits.
Chuck Connors.
Chuck Connors, the rifleman.
The rifleman, the main guy, is not listed in our list here.
It might be one of those in order of appearance kind of things.
I think it was. Yeah.
1 hour, 30 minutes. There's a trailer in the show notes. The spoiler-free says it's a roadside tourist attraction full of plaster dummies that turns out to be more than a group of young people bargained for. It's a fairly tame movie, but it's atmospheric, with a good performance by Chuck Connors and excellent use of some very creepy dummies and statues. There's not much truly original here, but it's all well done, entertaining, and it still holds up.
Yeah, it does.
All right, well, what happens?
Well, a guy rolls his flat tire down the road. He walks to Oscar's, a dusty old diner that looks out of business, but the door is open, and so he goes inside. He hears a woman moaning, but when he checks it out, it's a laughing mannequin. And then there are other laughing mannequins and dolls and dummies that jump out. And jars and bottles fly off the shelf and crash all around him. And he's finally impaled by a metal pipe.
Is it a ghost? Poltergeist?
We don't know.
Something weird. Stuff flying all around.
All the stuff flying at him.
It's not one of those things where the dummy's got somebody's hand in its back. It's clearly something's going on here.
Mm-hmm. Well, 4 young people drive past several signs for The Oasis. It's a tourist attraction. And they see the tire that Woody had been pushing and wonder what happened to him. And their car breaks down for no apparent reason. As Jerry works on the car, the 3 girls find a waterfall and a pool, and they decide to go for a swim. Well, someone is in the trees watching them. And then a kind of creepy old cowboy with a gun walks by, and they ask him about Woody, but the man, Mr. Slauson, says he hasn't seen them. He warns them about water moccasins wiggling around their feet. He's kind of messing with them.
Squeal and scream, and they all run out.
Yeah. He's messing with them, and he comes across as a good guy and helpful, and well, he offers to help them out. Just hop in the back of his truck.
It's the freaking rifleman. He never turns down, does anything wrong. He's the hero.
Yeah, and that's how he comes across. Yeah. Well, they'll go back for some tools, and he'll take them all back to he takes them to Slauson's Lost Oasis, which is a rundown tourist resort that's off the beaten path. And he's a bit of a hoarder now. He explains that his brother made all the dummies in the place. He was really good with mechanical things. And he and Jerry go back out to fix the truck, the car. Yeah. And he's got all kinds of automatons and wind-up gizmos and interesting things. Looked like it'd kind of be kind of a neat place to see. Yeah. Well, Eileen goes exploring, finds some strange talking dummies. Someone calls her name. She thinks it's Woody. Well,
Eileen.
doors slam, windows lock, chairs move, and the dummies start moving around, and she gets choked to death by her own scarf.
Oops.
Yikes. Meanwhile, Molly and Becky check out the mannequins and the dummies, and wow, that one, the skin feels almost real. That creeps out Molly. Well, Slauson comes back in, and Jerry took his truck to town for parts. He then tells a sad story about his wife dying of cancer, and he notices that Eileen is gone and goes out looking for her. And is that the point where he mentions the one mannequin that's kind of in a little shrine kind of thing is a mannequin of his wife?
I think we'll get back to that a little later.
That happens later, yeah. Well, he calls out to Davy.
He does.
He finds Eileen dead. Okay, I lost track of where I was there. He finds Eileen dead with a face mask like one of his dummies. And Molly finds a photo album with Slauson's wife. Oh, yeah, who looks like that super realistic dummy, the one with the lifelike skin. Well, Molly and Becky go out looking for Eileen as well. Becky sees the house that Eileen went into. It's multiple buildings here in this tourist trap thing. There's the diner and the museum kind of place and the house, and it's woodsy and swampy all around, so there's lots of territory for them to run around and hide. Well, she goes through an upstairs window into that house, and she gets trapped in a room with the crazy doll man. She knocks him down, but the mannequins themselves attack her. The doll man carries Becky downstairs and locks her in a room with another girl and Jerry, who didn't really go for parts. You got locked up.
Been locked up down there the whole time.
Yeah. Jerry explains that it's Slauson's crazy brother Davy. Davy comes back downstairs and makes them all drink. It's like a party. He's all tuxed out, like it's, The other girl, Tina, is strapped down to a table, and Davy puts plaster all over her face until she smothers. Jerry breaks loose and attacks Davy, which goes badly for Jerry. Meanwhile, Molly is upstairs, oblivious to what's going on. Davy talks about using his telekinetic powers, which sometimes even scares him. Well, Molly goes wandering in the woods, and she runs into Davy. She runs, though, and gets away. And Slauson comes up in his truck and picks her up. She's saved. Well, Slauson recognizes Molly's description and tells her that it was his brother. He goes inside, and the doll man comes out. You never see them both in the same place at the same time.
No, you don't.
You begin to suspect at this point. Hey. Well, she shoots him, but he gets right back up, laughing that she shot him with blanks. She breaks his mask, and it's really Slauson inside. Yep. But by now, she's the only one surprised by this. He finally catches Molly. Then Jerry and Becky get loose, and the cat and mouse starts all over again. Slauson picks up Becky, who doesn't know the truth, and the dummies come alive, and the mechanical cowboys shoot at each other and then at Becky. Finally, an Indian dummy throws a tomahawk into Becky's head. Ouch.
And these are not mechanical dummies or Chuck E. Cheese dummies.
Well, some of them are.
Some of them
are mechanical.
Most of them are
telekinetic. He's powering by his mental powers. And I like that. I thought that Chuck Connors really did a nice job showing the conflict, because he's whacked and he's got this incredible power and kind of a split personality, but he kind of liked these girls too, and you can tell
he was a nice guy until he wasn't.
Yeah, and you can tell that part of him that's a nice guy was really sitting there feeling a lot of regret. Like, she's dead. I did that. Yeah, I thought it was nice. I was impressed with his performance anyway. Yeah. Well, Slauson tells Molly that his real brother is actually dead. He admits that he killed the brother and his own wife, who were having an affair. Jerry breaks in to rescue Molly, but Slauson turns Jerry into a mannequin. That's quite a trick. Yeah. And as Slauson, Davy dances with his dummy wife, who appears to turn back into a real woman, other dummies close in. Molly gets an axe while he's distracted and does the deed, kills him. Well, the movie closes with her driving madly away with her now changed mannequin friends in the car with her.
Is it really necrophilia if you can use telekinesis to make them move correctly?
Oh, I don't know. That's a tough moral question.
Well, the plaster here is used in the murder scene. It looks an awful lot like bread dough, doesn't it?
Yeah, it did.
Yeah. The reveal of Slauson/Davy isn't really what you'd call a big surprise, since his voice barely changes, and one or the other is always off screen when the other is there. It's a little longer than it needs to be, and some of the running around out in the woods could have been cut. Still, Chuck Connors is actually very good and creepy here, and the rest of the cast is solid, and all the dummies are really cool too.
Yeah, very cool.
Yeah, the Chuck Connors, he was not top billed because he didn't want people to come thinking it was a Western. He was trying to reinvent himself as a horror icon because, Westerns were kind of dead by this time.
Trying something new.
Yeah, I remember him in that TV series, Werewolf. You remember that one?
I do, yeah.
You hated it?
It wasn't very good.
He was good at it. But
I think he was the only good thing in it.
Yeah, so Westerns were dead, and he was trying to do something different, and yeah, he did.
Anyway, I really recommend checking this one out. I've seen it multiple times, and I think it's fun, and yeah,
It's old.
really like this one.
It's old. It's a little dated, but yeah, it's all right.
It's one of my favorites from that era, late 70s, early 80s.
Uh-huh. Which takes us back a little bit further to Face of the Screaming Werewolf from 1964. Directed by Gilberto Martinez Solares, Rafael Portillo, Jerry Warren. Written by Juan Garcia, Gilberto Martinez Solares, and Alfred Salazar. You getting a vibe from those names?
Yeah, a little bit Spanish.
Yeah, a little bit. Stars Lon Chaney Jr., Virya Baruti, and George Mitchell Andre. 1 hour long, 60 whole minutes. There is a trailer in the show notes, and I strongly suggest you watch that trailer and then skip the movie.
Mm-hmm. That's exactly what I would say. Even though it's just an hour,
it's a bad hour.
I disavow my review of this. I got really nothing good to say about this. It was a money grab. It's garbage. It's two movies that they just. Yeah, well, you'll get into that.
A spliced-up mess made from 2 Spanish-language films involving a mummy and a werewolf and 2 groups of mad scientists. It's tremendously awful and hard to follow.
I just tuned it out and played games on my iPad while it was, finally halfway through. I'm
okay,
done.
So there were 2 different films that this was they stole bits from. Both of them were Spanish-language films, and this, of course, is an English film. So, as you can imagine, their mouths don't move right. There's a lot of periods when they don't talk, and it's not real good.
No.
Okay, 3 scientists, Redding and his men, experiment on Ann Taylor. As they hypnotize her, a boy sneaks into the room to watch. The dramatic music ramps up to be excessively dramatic as we watch the spinning disc get closer and closer. One of those spirally hypnosis discs that were so scary in the 50s. This came out in the 60s, by the way, so it wasn't. Finally, she goes to sleep. She talks about seeing the ancient land and a city of stone. She's experiencing a past life under hypnosis. How scientific.
Mm-hmm. Very, yeah.
There's a chieftain who tells the woman of the past not to go into the pyramid. She goes in anyway, unable to resist. Then she wakes up. Okay. The newsman tells us that Dr. Redding has gone to the Yucatan to explore the pyramid. Apparently, from the woman's memories, they learn where the secret pyramid was. Redding, Ann Taylor, and the staff arrive at the pyramid. She recognizes the place from her visions. We get a flashback to the old-time natives performing some kind of ritual in there. A woman sings while others beat the drums. The Aztec priest then sacrifices the woman. Back in the present, the gang walks into the pyramid. They find 2 mummies, one of whom roars at them. One was an old-time Aztec, and the other was a more modern man. Remember, there's 2 movies spliced together here?
So there's
each one
2
of them
mummies.
featured a different mummy, so we're going to get both of them. We cut back to Redding's return to civilization, where he presents his find. The lightings go out, the gun fires, Redding is killed, and the mummy is gone. The other scientists, led by Professor Canning, have stolen the mummy's body and put it in an experimental reanimation chamber. The machines cache science fiction sounds, but there's just not enough voltage. A criminal gets a phone call. Dr. Janning, who, somebody new, wants him to steal the other mummy. Lightning strikes, and the mummy, who is now sleeping in a wax museum behind a secret door, wakes up. Why would you put it in a wax museum behind a secret door where nobody can see it? The man looks out the window and sees the full moon. He looks terrified and then turns into a werewolf.
Oh, come on. The mummy turns into a werewolf?
Well, yeah.
Okay.
The werewolf hides in the lab as the scientists return. He kills one of them, but then grabs his throat and passes out. The criminal from earlier goes to steal the mummy, but it's up and walking around now too. It goes inside the house and wanders around, looking at people sleeping. It picks up Anne and carries her outside. A man in a car runs them over, killing them both. All right, then, back to the werewolf, who wakes up in the lab again and finally kills that other scientist. Janning then locks him in a cage. The police interview Dr. Munson about Janning and his people. The werewolf turns human in the day, but back into a wolf man that night. He's strong enough now to break open his cell and escape. Why he couldn't do that before, we don't know. He runs through the park, terrorizing people. He grabs a woman and climbs a building, King Kong style, because that's what werewolves do. A scientist climbs up after them, and the werewolf pushes him off the roof. The werewolf then takes the stairs back down and finds another woman to stalk. This werewolf's kind of a perv, you notice?
A little bit. Likes his women.
He does. The werewolf brings his next woman back to the lab and chases Janning around some more before killing him. Eventually, the werewolf grabs his throat and keels over again. This guy just keeps passing out. Guess that's what happens when you're a mummy/werewolf. The assistant then burns the body just as the police come in, who don't see anything out of the ordinary.
Nope.
Never mind that burning body in the middle of the floor.
Just an ordinary, and all the people that saw the commotion outside. And
Okay, so my synopsis there kind of makes sense. It's kind of coherent. Stuff happens. It makes sense.
it makes so much more sense hearing you read that
It does.
than watching it.
Yes, it's a disjointed mess.
Mm-hmm.
This is kind of a lesson in how not to make a horror movie. For a 60-minute film, supposedly about a werewolf, they spent an awfully long time on native dancing and rituals. This kind of makes sense since much of the film is just reused footage from two other films, La Mornia Azteca from 1957 and La Casa del Terror from 1960. It's an editing nightmare with chopped up footage all over the place and a story that barely makes any sense. I don't know. Did I make up half that story to fill in the gaps? I don't know.
I wonder.
Maybe. you look at something long enough, you try to make sense out of it. If you look closely, other than a couple of scenes, you don't see anyone's mouth moving. It's all overdubbed footage from the other films.
Yeah, sometimes they'd be talking and their mouths would literally be not moving at all.
There were some scenes of the newscaster reading his report, and that was in English. That was added later. That was original footage.
Uh-huh.
Pretty much everything else was not. And the sound effects from Janning's lab sequences are all stolen directly from Forbidden Planet from 1956. You'll recognize him if you've seen the movie. On the bright side, the werewolf's transformation is well done. Still, none of the characters matter as you only see them for a minute or two of screen time before we move on to something else. The mummy scenes were okay, but then he just becomes roadkill, though we never actually see that. He kind of dies off screen. Not only that, but it's all very, very, very misleading. At no point did that werewolf ever scream. Stinker.
He had a
0.
face, though.
He did. He looked like Lon Chaney, who was just really going for a second free paycheck. I wonder if he even made any money off of this.
I wonder, because it was just reused. He might not have.
He was in one of those other two movies, not both of them.
Mm-hmm.
And this was just reused footage. I wonder if they even had to pay him for that. Why, I hope so.
I hope so.
All right. Did we see any short films today? This week?
We saw a short.
Yeah, it's called Joke's on You, a new one from 2021. Directed by Aaron Fradkin and written by him and Victoria Fratz. Stars Zachary Moore, Eric Lampert, 10 minutes, 9 seconds. Link in the show notes to watch it. And what happens?
You can watch it on YouTube.
YouTube, yes.
Well, a man wakes up. He's all groggy and grungy. As he makes coffee, someone knocks on his door. But there's no one there when he goes to answer it. Finally, he opens it to see a man selling practical jokes and novelties. And
one of them.
He doesn't have a sense of humor about this, but the guy at the door certainly does. Yeah.
He's eager.
Over the top, yeah. He shuts the door in the man's face, so the salesman makes a mark on his door. The man goes back inside, and then there's another knock on the door. Who do you suppose it is? We're not going to tell you.
It's not Batman.
No. Is it the Joker?
It might be.
Sorta, yeah.
All right. What do you think?
I thought it was great. Yeah, the visuals are good. Pacing is excellent. Makeup is great. And the music is perfect. It really sets a weird mood all around. Really perfect. And we're not going to spoil it further. You need to see it.
He gets a big smile from me, though.
Yeah. Big ear-to-ear grin.
Yeah. Then our long movie of the week, Wolfen from 1981. Directed by Michael Wadley, written by Whitley Strieber, Dennis Ear, Michael Wadley again. Stars Albert Finney, Diane Venora, and Edward James Olmos. 1 hour, 55 minutes, trailer in the usual place. Spoiler-free. Wolf attacks in downtown New York City. Could it be a werewolf? Or maybe it's something even more sinister. This one tracks a detective as he finds out what's really going on. It's a little long, but it's really well acted, suspenseful, and holds up pretty well.
I had seen it before, and I had forgotten how long it was.
Boy, it is long.
It is, yeah. It doesn't drag.
I
don't think it's too long. Well, okay, maybe it's too long.
It's slow.
Yeah, there's some slow parts, but it was gripping. And Albert Finney, he was really great.
He wasn't. I don't know if he'd done a whole lot before this. Was he a big star?
Yeah.
He was at this point? Okay.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Well, we start out looking at various blighted New York City neighborhoods. We watch one old building being imploded. We soon see a point of view shot from something that seems to see an infrared or something like that. As the credits roll, we watch the ultra-rich Mr. Vanderveer in his limo. He's got some outrageously over-equipped security people. And Eddie. We don't know who Eddie is yet, but he runs along the bridge support and throws a bottle at Vanderveer's car. That's Edward James Olmos. They park the car and get out to play with wind chimes in the park. We see that weird point of view again, stalking the rich couple in the park. First, it attacks their driver/bodyguard, then the rich folks. We switch scenes to watch Dewey Wilson as he heads to work the next morning. He's a detective, and his boss calls to tell him to check out the crime scene.
That's Albert Finney.
He's kind of a slob.
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah, he is.
Yeah, slobby detective.
Yep. The mayor is on the scene. Could it be terrorism, or maybe an execution? Whittington, with the coroner's office, shows Dewey what happened. At the morgue, Dewey watches a few autopsies while he eats cookies.
Yeah, he's something.
Yeah. There's not a trace of metal in the wounds, no bullets, no knife, no heavy objects. What could have torn up the victims like this? Mr. Ross, the head of Vanderveer's security group, is also working on the case. Vanderveer's niece is his main suspect, since she opposed Vanderveer's political interests. They interview a terrorist in a room, and they use infrared to detect her lies, and I totally didn't see the point of any of this.
Oh, it was like a lie detector that the whole room was wired up to be.
That whole security, every time we go to that security room, there was nothing that came of it. That was just wasted scenes. They could have cut out all that crap.
Well, they were questioning these people and seeing if they were telling the truth or not. And
they could have saved a lot of time giving it set some other way. Okay, well, Dewey's new partner, Rebecca, interviews the niece, whom the lie detectors confirm knows nothing about any of this. Dewey doesn't believe this has anything to do with politics. We change over to seeing a drug addict buy some pills and then go wander through the demolished tenements to get high. One of those things sees him, but the man is too high to know what's going on. The demolition company is working and finds several bodies. Whittington calls Dewey. The hairs on the bodies match the hairs found on Mrs. Vanderveer. Dewey and Rebecca check out the site and are impressed with just how many abandoned buildings there are in the area. don't know where they filmed this, but there were a lot of buildings. And this was pre-CGI, so I suspect they're real.
Somewhere in New York.
Of course, they're being watched by something with super hearing also. Rebecca is almost attacked, but Dewey pulls her out of there fast. All Dewey saw was red glowing eyes. The guy at the zoo identifies the hares as belonging to a wolf or some related species. He explains that wolves and Indians, or Native Americans as they're known today, they do a lot of Indian talk in this,
Yeah, they do.
are intertwined because they had parallel evolutions. The only Indian Dewey knows is Eddie, so they go to see him. Dewey has to climb way up on top of the Brooklyn Bridge or something to talk to Eddie at work. Eddie says he can shapeshift, and Dewey's not sure that he's joking. Turns out, Eddie also works for the security company, and he often sits up on those bridges at night. That night, Whittington says all the various body parts and organs they found were diseased. The autopsies show that the victim's wounds are teeth. Teeth that ate good body parts but left the disease bits uneaten. Ferguson, the zookeeper, talks about shapeshifting being just a matter of having your mind in the right place. Mind over matter, you too could be a werewolf. Dewey follows Eddie one night. One of the older Native Americans pulls a medallion around Eddie's neck and gives him a pill. He then goes onto the beach and takes all his clothes off. He climbs around on all fours, howls at the moon, and laps up water like a dog. He spots Dewey and growls at him, but he's really just a human pretending. It's all in the head, he explains. The real creature breaks into the zoo and follows Ferguson. He calls in a false fire alarm so that the sirens would get the animals howling. I knew you were here, he says, right before one of them gets him. Dewey goes over to Rebecca's house, and the creature outside listens to them having sex. Whittington comes in the next day and says they've been finding those wolf-like hairs on diseased organs all over the country, not just New York.
No.
There sure are a lot of missing people in the world. Oh, and Ferguson didn't come home last night. Dewey and Whittington bring their guns and go into the slums that night looking for wolves. Dewey goes all over the place looking, while Whittington watches through his scope. All the while Dewey is hunting, the wolves close in on Whittington. They drag him away for food before Dewey can get there. Dewey then goes to see Eddie again, who explains that it's not wolves doing this, it's Wolfen. They're older than anything.
Bigger and smarter.
Their history goes way back to the earliest times. When the cities took over the land, the Wolfen moved into the abandoned buildings of the cities, preying on the homeless and abandoned people.
Just kind of blended in and hid.
They're a force of nature. Their work is older than ours. They kill the sick and the abandoned, the ones who won't be missed.
And they screwed up by killing the important person that blew their cover.
Dewey puts it all together. The Wolfen were protecting their territory from Vandermeer, who was planning on tearing down the tenements and making a huge new building development there. They would have lost their hunting ground, so they killed him. It wasn't random. As Dewey, Rebecca, and the police chief walk out to their car, they're surrounded by Wolfen. And we finally see them. They're just big dogs. The chief makes a run for it, but they tear him apart. They run back into Vanderveer's penthouse to escape the Wolfen.
They're not big dogs, they're wolves.
Old gods, but they look like wolves.
Okay, yeah.
The Wolfen break into the...
Actually, they really were. They weren't dogs.
What were they
for
really?
The film, we used real wolves.
Real wolves, okay.
Yeah.
The Wolfen break into the place anyway. The two detectives put down their guns and demonstrate to the Wolfen that they understand their motives and won't try to stop them. The Wolfen then vanish into thin air. And later on, Dewey blames it all on terrorists and goes home. Supposedly, the original cut of the film was 4.5 hours long, so they fired the director and re-edited everything to get this. It's still a little long. I think they could have done without all the scenes in the security headquarters. This added nothing to the story.
I think I'd kind of like to see that 4.5-hour version just to see what it was like.
Oh, boy. The monster's point of view shots are both the most dated...
Well, I think they were trying, with the room, the interrogations, I think they were trying to impress us with all this new high-tech, ultra-high-tech, for 1981. That was the bomb. That was science fiction level of
these things,
yeah, infrared and sound analysis and everything. Basically, the whole room was a lie detector.
Black and white
truth
cameras and a
detector,
Commodore computer don't impress me today. The monster's point of view shots are both the most dated and one of the best things about the film. It gives the monster a presence in the story, but this way we don't get to see what it really is until the end. Albert Finney really shows fear in a couple of scenes. As a washed-up detective with lots of issues, he's a really interesting character. Gregory Hines was Whittington. This was only his second film role, and he kind of knocks it out of the park as a funny but intelligent sidekick.
You can see why he went on to do lots of other things.
Yeah. Edward James Olmos is just weird. He's very weird.
Yeah, he is.
The sets and scenery in this film is what really sets the mood. Apparently, there were more abandoned, derelict buildings in New York City than my entire town has buildings. I bet you could fit our whole city in one of them sets.
And it was the South Bronx.
It was, okay.
Yeah. And the church that they used, though, they built that and burned it.
Okay.
That was a set piece that they did that too on purpose, but the rest of that whole surrounding area was just there like that.
Cool. The Wolfen aren't CGI or men in costumes. They're simply really large, real wolves, filmed to make them look larger than life. The Wolfen aren't werewolves in the strictest sense. They're some kind of ancient godlike beings that take the form of wolves. All right. Oh.
Ow.
Which brings us to our newish movie this week, Saint Maud from 2019. And just like the last few weeks, we've got a giveaway.
We got a giveaway. We have DVD Blu-ray.
The last few weeks have been Redbox codes. This one we have actual Blu-ray DVDs to give away.
I love giving away stuff.
Yeah. Changing the rules this time. We're going to give away all 5 copies to members of our newsletter list.
Okay.
Go to horrorbulletin.com. Make sure you're signed up before next weekend, which I don't have a calendar in front of me. It's probably like the 15th or 16th or something.
Somewhere around there.
Saturday in the middle of the month, we will choose the winners and send those out. Written and directed by Rose Glass. Stars Morpheus Clark. Whoa. Cowley Dunn. Whoa.
That is some
That's
name.
An Irish Welsh name. That's Welsh name. Calfium, yeah. Mr. Dunn,
Excuse
or Mrs. Dunn.
Excuse our pronunciation
don't even know.
of that.
And Jennifer Eel. 1 hour, 24 minutes. Trailer in the show notes. What'd you think?
I thought it was tremendously good, kind of depressing. Fascinating. A fascinating watch.
You said tremendously good with a hesitation there. I thought you were going to go a different way with it.
No.
Okay.
No, I thought it was very good. Very good in every way, but boy, it's a downer.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Watch, spoiler free. Watch as a nurse goes insane with her religious convictions. Is she dangerous, or is she going to actually help? Is she magical in some way, or is she just a loon? It's a slow build-up, not your typical horror film, but the ending is definitely worthy of some discussion, and we both did like it.
Mm-hmm.
All right, if you're going to try out for one of those prize DVDs, maybe you should stop listening now and skip to the end so you can hear what we're doing next week. But we'll cut the spoilers short this week like we usually do.
Yeah, we really should. You shouldn't go into too much on this one.
Well, we start out in what appears to be a hospital. A patient is dead, all cut up. We see Maud in the restroom, her hands covered in blood and very upset. Credits roll. Maud has her dinner, tomato soup. She's packing for a trip, heading to her newest posting. She has a pain in her stomach, and she prays that God has a bigger purpose for her than what she's seen so far. She's a live-in nurse and caregiver for Amanda, a woman with a spinal cord ailment who is going to die. Amanda was a former dancer and creative type, and Maud doesn't really approve of that. Amanda used to be a major celebrity, and she talks to Maud a lot about life. Maud recently found God and converted. She says she hears his voice. She can feel him inside her sometimes. She knows when he's pleased, and she likes the feeling. That evening, Maud falls over when the feeling hits her again. She has unexpected pains and nosebleeds. And
and the way that's handled, I almost wonder if it's, like a physical ailment. She has something, a tumor, or, it's a brain tumor or something mentally, not just mentally, but physically going on with her.
I was almost expecting something like Malignant to show up.
Yeah, yeah.
Something growing inside her. Now, we're not going to tell you how that resolves. Amanda then humors Maud by following along in prayers a few times. Amanda brings in Carol, a prostitute, to entertain herself, which Maud also very much disapproves of. Maud recommends to Carol that she isn't healthy and that she shouldn't come back. Joy, a woman on the street, stops Maud and calls her Katie. Joy seems surprised that Maud is still nursing. There seems to have been an incident at the previous posting. Joy gives Katie her number. Amanda then gets a phone call, and afterward, she treats Maud coldly. I'm going to stop there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So you've got this maybe crazy, maybe not, maybe possessed, maybe not, something nurse.
Maybe divine, yeah.
Yeah.
I thought they did a really good job of, truly, you don't know what's going on.
All right, well, it's another one of those watch a character slowly descend into madness kind of films, this time with a religious fanatic lean to it. The first half of the film is a slow build-up to get comfortable with all the characters, but about the time Maud gets fired, which is about where I just stopped, it starts going off the rails a little bit. Then it gets positively disturbing toward the end. It's much more low stakes than most horror films. It's not the end of the world, but will crazy Maud kill Amanda or won't she? Still, the acting and cinematography work very well to portray impending madness, which we do eventually get. Maybe. Sorta.
And there's the voice of God.
The special effects are minimal, and what we get is very well done. It's definitely not your typical horror movie, but it is really good.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
Well worth checking out.
Yeah. Sign up horrorbulletin.com, and we will maybe send you some discs. And that is our show for this week. Get ready for next week. We'll be watching some more classics. We'll be watching four more horror films. This time, we're going to blow all our budget in 1 week, I think. We're going to watch the expensive movies.
1975's Jaws.
Dun-dun, dun-dun.
Which I guess is a horror movie. It's nightmare material for sure.
I never really thought of it as a horror movie, but I mean, if you count the number of nightmares and phobias that thing's caused, yeah, it's way more than a lot of others.
And the classic Psycho from 1960.
Yeah.
Silence of the Lambs from 1991.
Ooh.
And Get Out from 2017.
You know,
I think we've got 4 winners for next week.
Yeah, I can tell you right now, we both saw Get Out when it came out, and we didn't really care for it too much.
So we're looking forward to seeing it again.
Yeah, maybe we
didn't
opinion.
We didn't like it as much as other people were just loving it and raving over it.
Yeah,
we kind of didn't get that. So we'll see what we think the second time.
Second viewing, yeah, we'll see what happens with that.
Yeah.
Well, I'm Brian.
And I'm Kevin.
We'll see you next week.
See ya.